Grandma told my dad to forgive his brother for getting my mom pregnant, so Dad took me, and we never saw them again. I was 11 the night everything broke. Grandma Eudora Vale thought I was upstairs asleep, but the old staircase in that house carried every word. I'd learned that years ago, how sound traveled up through the floorboards, how conversations from the dining room floated straight to the second floor landing if you knew where to sit. I knew where to sit. Voices woke me first. Not shouting exactly, but that kind of controlled anger that's somehow worse. The kind where people are trying not to yell but failing. I slipped out of bed, crept to my bedroom door, listened. Grandma's voice. Sharp. Certain. Then my mother crying. I moved to the staircase, positioned myself between two banisters where I could see down into the dining room without being seen. The old Victorian railing had gaps just wide enough. I'd hidden there before during boring adult conversations, but this time felt different. This time, everyone looked wrong. Grandma Eudora sat at the head of the table like always, spine straight, hands folded. But her jaw was tight, her eyes hard. Uncle Marcel slouched in the chair across from her, arms crossed over his chest, staring at the table like it might save him. My mother sat with her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. And my father. Dad sat perfectly still at the opposite end of the table from Grandma. Not moving. Not speaking. Just sitting there with his hands flat on the wood, staring at nothing. I'd never seen him look like that before. Alder, you need to forgive your brother. Grandma's voice cut through the room. Families survive worse than this. My father said nothing. Marcel made a mistake, Grandma continued. So did Corinne. But mistakes happen. You can't tear this family apart over one mistake. You need to think about what's best for everyone. Think about Lyra upstairs. I pressed closer to the railing. Uncle Marcel shifted in his seat, still not looking up. Alder, his voice cracked. It wasn't. I never meant. Shut up, Marcel. Grandma didn't even glance at him. You're not helping. My mother's crying got louder. She lifted her head, mascara streaked down her face. Alder, please. I never stopped loving you. It was a moment of weakness. We were both drunk and she reached across the table toward him. Please. We can fix this. We can raise the baby together. No one has to know. We can. Wait. Baby? My brain stuttered over that word. I looked at my mother's stomach. She was wearing a loose sweater, but now that I was looking, really looking, oh. The pieces fell together fast. Uncle Marcel. My mother. The baby that wasn't my dad's. I gripped the railing harder. Think about what divorce would do to Lyra, Grandma said. Think about what splitting this family would do to all of us. The business. The reputation. Everything your father and I built. You can't just throw it away because your pride is hurt. My father's hands were still flat on the table. He hadn't moved once. Say something, Alder, Grandma demanded. Nothing. Uncle Marcel tried again. I know look, I'll leave town if you want. I'll stay away. But don't punish Mom for this. Don't punish Corinne. Don't. You'll do no such thing, Grandma snapped. Your family, Marcel. You're staying right here where you belong. Alder is going to forgive you both because that's what adults do. That's what family does. My mother was nodding, crying, reaching for my father's hand across the table. We can work through this. I'll do anything. Couples therapy. Whatever you want. Just please don't leave. Please don't take Lyra away from me. The silence stretched out forever. Then my father moved. He stood slowly, like his joints hurt. Looked at each of them in turn, Grandma, Uncle Marcel, my mother. His face was completely calm. Almost cold. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. All right. One word. The relief in that room was instant. Grandma's shoulders dropped. Uncle Marcel exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. My mother reached for Dad's hand again, and this time she caught it, squeezing it between both of hers. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Alder. We'll fix this. I promise. I need some air, Dad said, pulling his hand back gently. I'm going for a walk. He left the dining room without looking back. Grandma immediately started talking about moving forward and healing and keeping this quiet. Uncle Marcel just sat there looking relieved. My mother kept crying, but now they were grateful tears. They all thought he'd surrendered. They all thought all right meant forgiveness. But I was watching my father's face when he said it. I saw something they didn't. His eyes weren't sad. They weren't angry either. They were calculating. I knew that look. I'd seen it before when he was solving problems at work, when he was designing buildings on his drafting table, when he was figuring out how structures held together, or how they collapsed. That wasn't the face of a man who'd given up. That was the face of a man who'd already decided something. I crept back to bed, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what my father was planning, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. They had no idea what was coming. For the next 2 weeks, nothing changed. At least, that's what everyone else thought. Sunday dinners continued like clockwork. We'd pile into Grandma's house, sit around that same table, eat pot roast and pretend everything was fine. Uncle Marcel started showing up again after lying low for a few days. Mom wore loose clothes and smiled too much. Grandma presided over it all like a queen who'd successfully squashed a rebellion. Dad carved the roast. Asked the potatoes. Asked how everyone's week was. Normal. Except I was watching him now. Really watching. And nothing about him was normal. He worked late more often. I'd hear his office door close after dinner, hear his voice through the walls, low, controlled, talking to someone. Not his usual work calls about building codes and construction timelines. These were different. Shorter. More careful. Papers appeared on his desk that I'd never seen before. Legal-sized documents with official letterheads. He'd spread them out, read them, make notes in the margins. When I walked in, they'd disappear into folders before I could see what they said. He went to the bank 3 times in 1 week. I know because I counted. Running errands, he'd say when he came back. Mom didn't notice. She was too busy flipping through baby name books and talking about nursery colors. She'd gotten it in her head that Dad's alright meant he'd accepted everything, that they were going to be one big happy family. Uncle Marcel got braver. Started making jokes again at dinner. Slapping Dad on the back like they were buddies. Grandma encouraged it, talking about healing and moving past difficult times. Dad smiled. Nodded. Said very little. But I saw things they didn't. Like the boxes appearing in our garage, neatly labeled with our names. Like Dad going through my closet one night when he thought I was doing homework, sorting clothes into piles, keep, donate, leave behind. What are you doing? I asked from the doorway. He didn't even flinch. Just organizing. This closet's a mess. But I could see the system. The efficiency. This wasn't spring cleaning. This was preparation. Are we going somewhere? I asked quietly. He looked at me for a long moment. Really looked, like he was deciding something. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? I thought about the last 2 weeks. About sitting at Grandma's table watching Uncle Marcel laugh and Mom smile and everyone pretend that what happened didn't matter. About the way Dad's jaw tightened every time someone said the word family. Yes, I said. Good. He went back to sorting clothes. Don't tell anyone we had this conversation. Can you promise me that? I promise. He asked me strange questions after that. Casual ones, like he was just making conversation. If you could only pack 2 bags, what would you bring? If we moved somewhere new, what would you want our place to look like? Which of your toys could you live without? I answered carefully, playing along with whatever game this was. The last Sunday dinner before everything changed felt different. I knew it was the last one. I could feel it in the way Dad moved through Grandma's house, like he was memorizing it. Saying goodbye to a place he'd never see again. Uncle Marcel brought wine. Mom's stomach was starting to show under her sweater. Everyone was laughing, making plans, talking about Thanksgiving like we'd all be there together. Dad carved the roast. Told a story about a job site mishap that made Grandma laugh so hard she had to wipe her eyes. He was good. So good that even I almost believed things were normal. But I watched him hug Grandma goodbye at the door, watched him shake Uncle Marcel's hand, watched him help Mom into the car with a gentleness that looked real. And I knew. He was saying goodbye. They just didn't know it yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. I got up around midnight, crept downstairs for water, and found the kitchen light on. Dad sat at the table surrounded by documents. Not hiding them. Not putting them away when I walked in. I saw the letterheads. Law offices. Real estate agencies. Bank transfer forms. Custody agreements. Everything's ready, he said quietly, like he'd been expecting me. Tomorrow morning. My heart started pounding. We're leaving? Before sunrise. Pack light. Just what you need. What about Mom? He looked at me then. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold in a way I'd never seen before. Your mother made her choice, he said. Now I'm making mine. I went back to bed but I didn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The clock ticking in the hallway. The furnace clicking on and off. Mom's soft snoring from their bedroom down the hall. I stared at the ceiling and waited. At 4:46 a.m., my bedroom door opened. No knock. Just Dad, already dressed, moving quietly. "Pack light, Lyra," he whispered. "We're leaving." I was out of bed before he finished the sentence. I'd already decided what I was bringing. I'd spent the last 2 weeks thinking about it. One backpack. Favorite clothes. The photo album from when I was little. My stuffed rabbit that I was probably too old for but didn't care. I dressed in the dark. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers. Dad waited by the door, watching the hallway. "Is Mom awake?" I whispered. "No." Something in his voice made me look closer. "Did you? I made her chamomile tea last night. With a little extra help for sleeping," he said it matter-of-factly, like he was describing the weather. "She won't wake up for hours." We moved through the house like ghosts. Everything was already done. Our bags were in the trunk, I could see them through the kitchen window, the car running in the driveway, exhaust curling in the cold pre-dawn air. The house looked normal, untouched, like any other morning. Except on the kitchen counter sat an envelope with Mom's name on it in Dad's handwriting. And next to it, his house keys. "What's in the letter?" I asked. "The truth." He didn't elaborate. Just put his hand on my shoulder and guided me toward the door. No shouting. No goodbyes. No final looks at the house I'd grown up in. Just a car rolling down the empty highway while the town disappeared in the rearview mirror. I watched it go. The familiar streets. The school. Grandma's house on the hill. Uncle Marcel's apartment building. All of it shrinking smaller and smaller until there was nothing left but darkness and road. Dad drove steady. Not speeding, not rushing. Just calm, controlled, like he'd driven this route 1,000 times in his head. The highway was empty. Stars still out, fading as the sky started to lighten at the edges. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. 3 states away. I took a new job with a firm out east. Better pay, better benefits. Found us an apartment. Everything's arranged. "When did you arrange it?" "The last 2 weeks. I processed that. While everyone thought you'd forgiven them. While everyone thought I'd surrendered." He said it without emotion. Just fact. "What were you actually doing?" He glanced at me, then back at the road. "Filing divorce papers. Selling the house, it was only in my name, your mother never bothered to check the deed. Arranging custody. Transferring money into separate accounts. Setting up our new life." "The house was only yours?" "I bought it before we got married. Never added her name. She assumed it was ours. So did Grandma." He shrugged. "People assume a lot of things when they're not paying attention." "They're going to look for us," I said quietly. "Let them." The certainty in his voice made me believe him. We drove in silence for a while. I watched the sunrise through the windshield, painting the sky pink and orange. Everything I'd ever known was behind us now. Everything ahead was unknown. It should have been terrifying. It wasn't. "What are they going to wake up to?" I asked. Dad's jaw tightened. "Your mother's going to find that letter. The divorce papers were filed Friday, she'll be served by Monday. The house sold 3 days ago. Bank accounts are already separated. By the time Grandma and Uncle Marcel realize what happened, we'll be completely gone. No forwarding address. No phone number. No way to contact us." "What about custody?" "I have documentation of everything. The adultery. The betrayal. Your uncle's employment history, or lack of it. I'll get full custody. She might get supervised visitation if she's lucky." "If she can find us," I said. "If she can find us." We arrived at the new city as morning broke properly. I'd never been here before. Didn't even know the name until I saw the sign on the highway. Dad pulled into an apartment complex, parked in a numbered spot like he owned it. "Come on," he said. "I'll show you our new place." The apartment was small but clean. 2nd floor, overlooking a parking lot. But inside, it was already set up. Furniture in place. Kitchen stocked. My bedroom had a bed, a desk, posters already on the walls like I'd been living there for months. "When did you do all this?" I asked, staring. 2 weekends ago. Told your mother I was visiting a job site." He set my backpack down. "I wasn't pretending everything was normal, Lyra. I was planning." I walked through the apartment, touching things. My new dresser. The books on the shelf. Everything ready. Everything waiting. "You did all this in 2 weeks." "I did all this the moment I said all right at that table." That afternoon, Dad's old phone started ringing. Over and over. Different numbers. Same desperate energy. He pulled it out of his pocket, removed the SIM card, snapped it in half with his bare hands, and dropped it in the trash. "They know," I said, watching the pieces fall. Dad walked to the window. Looked out at our new city. Our new life. Our new beginning. "Good," he said quietly. "Now they can live with what they did." Dad blocked them all. I didn't realize how thorough he'd been until weeks went by and nothing got through. No calls. No emails. No letters. Just silence. The old phone sat in pieces in the trash. Dad got a new one with a number nobody knew. Changed his email. Deleted every social media account he'd ever had, not that he used them much anyway. No forwarding address? I asked as we unpacked boxes in the apartment. None. What if they try the office? I transferred departments. Different extension. Different assistant. If they call asking for Aldervale in structural engineering, they'll be told I don't work there anymore. But you do. In a different division. Under a different supervisor. They'd have to know exactly where to look. He folded an empty box flat. They don't. I learned about their attempts in pieces. Fragments. Things Dad's lawyer mentioned during phone calls I'd overhear. Things that slipped through the cracks despite Dad's best efforts to seal them all. Grandma Eudora called Dad's old office 17 times in the first month. His former assistant kept a log. Dad's lawyer showed him once. 17 calls, each one more desperate than the last. She tried my old school. Got nowhere. Record sealed due to custody dispute. She sent letters to the old house. The new owners returned them all, unopened. No forwarding address on file. She even tried reporting Dad for kidnapping. That one made Dad laugh when his lawyer called to tell him. "What did they say?" I asked. "That I have full legal custody, filed for divorce before we left, broke no laws, and committed no crimes. The police told her to get a lawyer if she wanted to pursue custody arrangements." He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "She'd need to know where we are first." Uncle Marcel showed up at the old house drunk 6 weeks after we left. The new owners called the police. He got arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. He tried tracking Dad through old friends. Dad had already called them all, explained enough to make sure they wouldn't talk. Most of them didn't anyway. Turns out people don't stay loyal to cheaters. I saw a post once, months later, scrolling through social media on a burner account I wasn't supposed to have. Uncle Marcel asking if anyone knew where Aldervale moved to. 0 responses. Mom hired a private investigator. Cheap one, according to Dad's lawyer. Found nothing. Dad left no trail, no paper, no digital footprint, no breadcrumbs. She tried filing for custody. Got laughed out of court. Adultery. Abandonment of the marital home. No stable residence, she was living with Grandma by then. No job. No way to prove she could provide a better environment than Dad. The judge granted her supervised visitation rights. Good luck exercising those when you don't know what state we're in. She wrote letters. Dozens of them, apparently. Sent to addresses that didn't exist, hoping one would somehow reach us. None did. Dad anticipated everything. Every angle, every attempt, every desperate move they might make. He'd thought it through while sitting at Grandma's table smiling and carving pot roast. He'd planned it while they celebrated and made jokes and talked about the future. He'd already won before they realized they were playing. Meanwhile, our new life started. School was weird at first. New kids. New teachers. Nobody knew me, which was strange and good at the same time. I wasn't Lyra whose parents are getting divorced or Lyra whose uncle did that thing. I was just Lyra. Made friends who didn't know my history. Joined the soccer team. Got good grades. Normal stuff. Dad and I built routines. Saturday morning breakfast at the diner down the street. Weeknight homework at the kitchen table while he cooked dinner. Summer road trips to places we'd never been. He never badmouthed Mom in front of me. Never called her names, never made me feel guilty for asking about her. But he also never pretended the past was different than it was. "Do you miss them?" I asked one night, maybe 6 months in. We were doing dishes together, another routine we'd built. He was quiet for a long time. "I miss who I thought they were. Not who they actually are." "What's the difference?" "I thought your mother was someone who'd keep her promises. I thought your grandmother valued integrity over image. I thought my brother," he stopped. Set down the plate he was drying. "I thought Marcel had a line he wouldn't cross. And they weren't those people." "No. So you don't miss them?" I miss the versions of them I created in my head. But those people never existed. The one call that got through came 6 months after we left. Unknown number. Dad almost didn't answer. Then he did, putting it on speaker so I could hear. Alder, please. We need to talk about this. Grandma Eudora's voice. Older than I remembered. Tired. Dad's face didn't change. There's nothing to talk about, Mother. Lyra deserves to know her family. Lyra knows her family. Me. That's enough. You can't just erase us. I'm not erasing you. You erased yourselves. His voice was calm. Cold. You made your choice at that table. You chose Marcel over me. You chose protecting him over protecting your son. You chose image over integrity. Live with it. Alder. He hung up. Blocked the number. Set the phone down. You okay? I asked. Fine. Was that hard? No. He looked at me. The hard part was sitting at that table listening to them tell me what I should accept. Leaving was easy. Years passed. I grew up. Dad never mentioned them. The old life became a distant memory, like a story that had happened to someone else. Someone younger. Someone who didn't know better yet. I turned 13. 15. 17. High school graduation. College applications. They became ghosts. Faded photographs. Names I barely remembered how to pronounce. Then one day, home from college for winter break, I was destroying time on my laptop while Dad made dinner. Searching random things. Bored browsing. I typed our old hometown name into Google. Don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Nostalgia for a place I barely remembered. The search results loaded. Third one down was a news article. Local paper. Recent date. I clicked it. Read the headline. Felt my stomach drop. Dad, I said quietly. You need to see this. Vale Construction files for bankruptcy. Local family business closes after 40 years. Dad came over, dish towel still in his hand. Read over my shoulder. When was this published? He asked. 2 weeks ago. He scanned the article. I watched his face for a reaction. There wasn't one. Uncle Marcel ran it into the ground, he said simply. Then he went back to cooking dinner. I kept reading. The article was detailed. Brutal, actually. Vale Construction, Grandma Eudora's company, the one she'd built over 4 decades, the one that was supposed to be her legacy, was done. Poor management. Bad investments. Family infighting that bled into business decisions. The reporter had interviewed former employees. They talked about how things fell apart after the younger Vale's son took over operations. How projects went over budget. How clients stopped renewing contracts. How the reputation that took 40 years to build collapsed in less than 5. Uncle Marcel's name was mentioned 17 times. Dad's name wasn't mentioned once. Over the next few weeks, I started digging. Not obsessively. Just curious. Occasional Google searches. Public records. An old mutual friend Dad hadn't completely cut off who still lived in that area. I pieced together what happened to them. Grandma Eudora. She'd lost both sons. Dad by choice. Uncle Marcel by incompetence. After Dad left, she'd tried running the company herself while also trying to help Mom with a baby. But Uncle Marcel kept pushing to be more involved in the business. He was her son. He needed a job. Family takes care of family, her own words coming back to haunt her. She made him a project manager. Then a partner. Then, when her health started failing, she let him take over operations. He destroyed it in 3 years. The business she'd spent her entire adult life building. Gone. Bankrupted. Assets liquidated. She died 2 years after the bankruptcy. I found her obituary online. Small service. Survived by one son, Marcel Vale, and several distant cousins. Neither son attended her funeral. Well, one son wasn't invited. The other apparently didn't show. Uncle Marcel. The affair with Mom ended within months. Shocking exactly no one. Turns out getting someone pregnant isn't the same as actually wanting to raise a child. Who knew? He stuck around long enough to get his name on Grandma's business paperwork. Long enough to drive it into the ground. Then the bankruptcy happened, and suddenly Uncle Marcel was unemployed, unmarried, and unemployable. No one wants to hire the guy who destroyed a 40-year-old company. Last I could find, he was living 2 states away, bouncing between construction jobs, nothing permanent. Never married. No relationship with the child he'd fathered. He'd lost everything he thought he'd won. Mom, This one was harder to track. She kept a lower profile. She'd raised the baby alone for a couple years. Lived with grandma, tried to make it work. But from what I could piece together, she couldn't cope. Single mother, no job skills, no support system beyond grandma who was drowning in business problems. Eventually, she gave up custody to her sister. Just handed the kid off and left. Moved out of state. No one seemed to know exactly where. The mutual friend said she'd disappeared about 8 years ago. Just packed up and left one day. She tried contacting me once. I was 18, first year of college. Got a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. "Lyra, this is your mother. I know it's been a long time. I'd really like to talk to you. To explain. Please." I'd stared at that message for about 10 seconds. Then blocked the account. Never replied. Never looked back. She'd disappeared from our lives the same day we did from theirs. Seemed fair. So they all just fell apart, I said one night, showing Dad what I'd found. We were sitting in his living room. He'd downsized after I moved out for college. Smaller place, less maintenance. Just him now. He read through the information I'd compiled. Nodded occasionally. No shock. No satisfaction. Just acknowledgement. They were already broken, Lyra. I just stopped holding the pieces together. Grandma lost everything. The business. Both sons. Her whole legacy. She chose Marcel over me at that table. Then Marcel destroyed what she spent her life building. Actions have consequences. Uncle Marcel lost everything he thought he'd won. He got exactly what he took. My wife. My mother's approval. The family business. All of it collapsed because none of it was his to take in the first place. And Mom just left. Like you did. Not like I did. Dad's voice was firm. I left to protect you. To build something better. She left because she couldn't handle the consequences of her choices. There's a difference. I sat back, processing it all. Over the years, I'd heard the whispers. The old stories that made it through the grapevine. People who knew the tale of Alder Vale. He couldn't handle it, so he ran. Kidnapped his daughter and disappeared. Abandoned his family when they needed him most. I used to get angry hearing those versions. Used to want to correct them, defend Dad, explain what really happened. Now I just knew better. People believe what makes them comfortable. What confirms their own choices. What lets them sleep at night. Let them think Dad ran. Let them think he was weak. We knew the truth. They think you ran, I said. I know. Doesn't that bother you? He looked at me like I'd asked if gravity bothered him. Why would it? Their opinion doesn't pay my bills or raise my daughter. They can think whatever makes them feel better about their own choices. Some people think you abandoned your family. I abandoned people who betrayed me. That's not family. That's just biology and paperwork. He said it so matter-of-factly. No anger. No bitterness. Just truth. I thought about the life we'd built. The Saturday morning breakfast that turned into a 15-year tradition. The road trips. The homework sessions. The college visits. The graduations. Dad teaching me to drive. Helping me move into my first apartment. Being there for every important moment without being asked. Meanwhile, Mom was somewhere unknown, having left the child she'd chosen over her marriage. Uncle Marcel was alone, broke, and unemployable. Grandma was gone, her legacy ashes. And Dad? Dad was fine. Better than fine. Retired early. Financially secure. Healthy. At peace. Do you ever regret it? I asked quietly. Leaving like that. Cutting them all off. He looked at me. Really looked. At the confident, healthy, well-adjusted young woman I'd become. The law degree on my wall. The life I'd built. The person I was because of the choice he'd made 15 years ago. Not for a single second. I'm 24 now. Law degree. My own practice starting up. My own apartment across town from Dad's place. We still have dinner together every week. Our tradition. Started with Saturday morning breakfasts when I was 11 and evolved into Thursday night dinners now that we're both adults with our own schedules. Tonight we're at his place. I'm chopping vegetables while he handles the stir-fry. Same rhythm we've had for over a decade. I've been thinking about something, I say, scraping onions into the pan. Yeah? What would have happened if you'd stayed? If you'd forgiven her like Grandma wanted? He doesn't answer right away. Just keeps cooking, methodical and calm. What do you think would have happened? He finally asks. I think I would have grown up learning that betrayal is acceptable. That love means swallowing disrespect. That family means tolerating poison. I set down the knife. I would have watched you accept something unacceptable, and I would have learned that's what you do when people hurt you. Instead, I learned that walking away from toxic people isn't weakness. It's strength. He nods, transferring food to plates. That's exactly why I left. We sit down at his small kitchen table. Same spot we've sat 1,000 times. People always got it wrong, Dad says, passing me the rice. They thought I ran because I was hurt or scared or broken. What were you? Done. He says it simply. There's a difference. Running means you're afraid of what's chasing you. Walking away means you've decided they're not worth running from. I think about that night 15 years ago. 11-year-old me watching from the staircase as they tried to guilt him into staying. Grandma thought she could manipulate you into forgiving. She'd been doing it my whole life. To everyone. It always worked before. Mom thought she could cry her way out of consequences. She probably could have with most people. That's what she was counting on. And Uncle Marcel thought he'd won something. Dad's smile is cold. He won a woman who cheated on her husband, a mother who enabled it, and a business he had no idea how to run. He won a disaster. You knew they'd fall apart. I knew they were already broken. I just stopped being the thing holding them together. We eat in comfortable silence for a while. You taught me something important, I say eventually. You taught me that the most powerful thing you can do sometimes is just leave. No drama. No revenge. No grand confrontation. Just close the door and lock it. Your grandmother thought family meant tolerating anything. That blood obligated me to accept betrayal. He sets down his fork. But family isn't biology. It's choice. Respect. Trust. They broke all of that. So they stopped being family. She lost both sons. She chose Marcel over me. Then Marcel destroyed everything she'd built. She made her choice. Uncle Marcel lost everything he thought he'd won. He took what didn't belong to him and couldn't hold on to it. That's on him. And Mom. Your mother disappeared from our lives the same day we did from theirs. Dad's voice is even. No emotion. Just fact. Seems fair. I think about the half-sibling I've never met. The child Mom and Uncle Marcel created. Being raised by an aunt somewhere, growing up without either parent. Do you think they ever understood? I ask. What they lost? I don't know. And I don't care. He looks at me directly. That's the point, Lyra. The moment I stopped needing their understanding, their approval, their acknowledgement, that's when I won. You didn't need revenge. Revenge implies they still had power over me. They didn't. I just removed myself from the equation and let nature take its course. We finish dinner. Do dishes together. Another routine. I used to wonder if you were angry, I say, drying plates. If somewhere deep down, you were bitter about what they did. I was angry, he admits. For about a week. Then I channeled it into planning. Into building something better. Into protecting you from having to grow up watching your father be disrespected. So you're not angry anymore? Why would I be? Look at us. Look at what we built. We're happy. Healthy. Successful. We have routines and traditions and actual peace. He gestures around his quiet apartment. They have ashes and regrets and consequences. Who won? He's right. Grandma died alone, her legacy destroyed, both sons gone in different ways. Uncle Marcel drifts through life broke and unemployed, the golden child who turned everything to rust. Mom vanished into obscurity, abandoning even the child she'd chosen over her marriage. And Dad? Dad retired early. Travels when he wants. Consults part-time on projects he finds interesting. Has a daughter who calls him every day and has dinner with him every week. Built a life defined by peace instead of drama. He lost nothing that mattered. He just stopped giving pieces of himself to people who never deserved them. People think you ran away, I say, putting the last plate away. Dad smiles. Let them think that. But you didn't run. No. He hangs up the dish towel with the same precision he does everything. I didn't run, Lyra. I closed the door behind us, and locked it forever. We stand in his quiet kitchen. No ghosts. No obligations. No voices from a past that no longer has any power. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. The kind of peace that comes from walking away from toxicity with your head high. The kind of peace that comes from choosing yourself and the people who actually deserve you. 15 years ago, my father said one word, all right, and everyone thought he'd surrendered. They were wrong. He didn't surrender. He just stopped fighting where they could see him. And while they tore each other apart trying to hold on to what they'd destroyed, we built something better from the silence. Grandma lost both sons. Uncle Marcel lost everything he thought he'd won. Mom lost the family she betrayed. And my father? He didn't lose anything. He closed the door behind us, and locked it forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.